Good evening, and thank you all for joining us today. My name is Rashmita, and I'm the event planner for Microsoft Reactor Bengaluru, India. The session will run over the next 60 minutes, including Q&A. The session is being recorded and will be uploaded to our Reactor YouTube channel. I will share the link to our YouTube channel in the chat section soon. Before we begin, please take a moment to read our code of conduct. We are all here to learn together, so please be respectful of other people's views, understanding of differences, being kind and considerate in the way you engage. The chat will be open throughout, and we do encourage you all to participate. Also, please keep your mics muted during the session. I would now like to welcome Jasjit, our speaker for today's session. Jasjit Chopra is a Microsoft MVP and MS certified cloud architect with strong background in SharePoint, Office 365, and Azure. But for now, I will hand over to Jasjit to begin the session. Over to you, Jasjit.
Thank you, Rashmita. Thank you all for joining me today. All right, so let me go ahead and share my slide here, and we can go from there. Okay. Did it work? Yes, it worked. Right. Okay. So if you're joining right now in the chat window, probably you can go ahead and tell me about your experience in terms of what you have, and go from there, basically. Okay, so we're going to talk about zero trust, and this is becoming a lot more crucial. Again, I will not go in detail in terms of what we need in terms of why this is important. I hope everybody understands today the threat landscape is a bit of a hot topic at this point, and pandemic has not only accelerated your work from home or remote capabilities for all your IT companies, but also for these threat actors. They've become very organized, and I'll start with this. In the legacy days, identity used to be important. You used to have the thought process of you change your password every 30 days, and you do those exercises. Now you have MFA, and MFA today actually suppresses 90% of these attacks in the first place. So it's very important to have a very robust and holistic approach in getting that MFA rolled out properly. We'll talk about that a little later. I'll show you what not to do specifically in this session as well. And in today's world, identity is your new parameter, where these yes, there are phishing attacks through emails and junk mail that come through you. That's definitely there. That's being followed today as well. And the numbers have increased in terms of how many spam mails and everything else that you get today. But what people are doing from a bad actor perspective, they have organized themselves in ways which you cannot even some people cannot even fathom that this is what is happening out there. So if you're getting attacked today, if you're an organization and you're getting a cyber attack, their end goal is to encrypt your stuff and hold you against your ransomware, and they will encrypt everything, all your content, and if you don't have backup or anything, they'll ask for they'll extort you for money and ask for ransom to release the decryption keys so that you can go ahead and get all the data back, right? So, but majority of these issues today are very easily, if not in a very difficult or in a not very expensive way, with very few investments and proper planning and proper configuration, these are all avoidable today, right? So today we're going to focus on how to protect identity as such within the zero trust framework as such that Microsoft is going with. And I would suggest everybody takes this very seriously at the end of the day. And if you want to take one thing from this whole session on that, okay, this is the one thing that this session is going to give me a learning as a take home thing, that would be make sure that you understand that security is everybody's job. People don't do that today. If I go to organizations today and I'm doing consulting on their security posture or anything like that, I ask this question that who is responsible for security in your team? And they start pointing, oh, this department is responsible for this security, that department is this, this guy in IT is doing security for this particular infrastructure component, and this guy is doing it for this. uh, in certain way, yes, you have responsible people for certain workloads and applications and stuff like that. That's definitely there. But in general, in a bigger picture, you have to have this kind of mindset today where security is everybody's job. Imagine you living in a house with no locks and keys. If anybody in your family member sees a stranger, they will, ask questions. Who is this guy? Why is he entering our house? Or even if you have locks and bolts attached to your system and somebody, you see a stranger in your house, anybody will speak about it, right? So from the same thought process, everybody in your organization, it doesn't matter whether he or she is from an HR department or a finance department, they should understand that they are also responsible for security at the end of the day. And if they see something that is out of the blue, or that is something that they can contribute to better provide or improve the security posture of the company as such, uh, they should follow their best practices and improve their level of contribution, and making sure that as for example, as a CFO, they should manage and talk to the IT leaders as well, and make sure that they share confidential information in a way that cannot be exploited, or if it gets and be ready for when that exploit happens and have those discussions. um, Securing your um, parameter is one thing in terms of whether it's identity, network, or your applications. We're going to look at that later. And we're going to right now just focus on your first baby step. In my understanding, our first baby step should be the identity as such. That's what Microsoft recommends as well. So, and the one thing that you can do that will help you with getting, by stopping these attacks by more than 90% is getting your MFA up and running. And again, when I say MFA up and running, it doesn't mean that you put one checkbox over there and get it up and running from that perspective. But there are a lot more things that needs to be planned when you do this MFA, and the caveats and do's and don'ts that are there for this as well. We'll go through it. But yes, uh, have this cultural mindset change available within your company. uh, Security is the new, identity is the new parameter as such. In terms of, I don't know, I mean, I've seen some people who have like 20 years of experience. In the old days, the parameter used to be network. They used to protect their network. They used to be like, okay, anything within this network, I'll trust everything within this network. Outside of the network, they'll put firewalls, they'll put everything around it, and they'll make sure that no bad actor can get in the first place, right? But today, internal threats and identity, when it gets stolen, uh, people will, these attackers, they would actually, so this is where it has become a very organized cyber landscape today. Cyber criminals landscape has become very organized. There could be one actor who is only responsible for first level of breach with one identity, which is at a lower level on in your organization. Then they will basically sell that information to another actor who specializes in gaining elevated access. So if I get access to a lower person with an on the operational floor, I'll sell that details to another guy who is dedicatedly working on understanding how he can get into elevation and get access to other credentials from there. Then he will say in the market out there, whatever you want to call it, black market or whatever, he will go ahead and present those credentials and say, hey, I have elevated credentials available for selling. The third actor who specializes in doing discovery and analysis of what content is available and accessible within that organization is a separate guy. He that is his job. He does that day in and day out, day in and day out, and that is one vertical that he focuses on, right? So he will do this and then sell it to a company who is, sorry, not company, sell it to another cyber criminal who is, or a cyber criminal group who is responsible for, doing the actual ransomware and encrypting the data and doing the extortion. So during this time, when these attacks happen, you will see those bad actors coming in, doing their work, and then doing nothing. Then the next person takes over, they come in, they do their work, they get out, right? And the biggest issue is many organizations on an average don't even know between 6 to 9 months that a bad actor is present in their in their organization, and they have access to their resources in some form or fashion, which is a huge concern at this stage. So how do you protect yourself? How do you make sure that you're taking the right steps to protect yourself? Even if you are in cloud, that doesn't mean that you're protected. There are a lot of configuration items, whether you're, it doesn't matter whether you're in Microsoft Cloud or some other third-party vendor. It's on you how you configure your systems and your services and applications that you buy from these cloud providers or SaaS application service providers to see how secure you are. A very simple example is when you go to Outlook.com and you sign up for Microsoft's free email service today, it will suggest you to enable a multi-factor authentication and protect your account with not just a username and password, username being your email address and your password, but it will ask you to either install a Microsoft Authenticator app or use SMS as a second token for SMS for text-based authentication, basically, right, as a second factor to the authentication. So now, if you prefer not to do that, then that particular onus of if you get hacked is on you, because the recommendation from there is that you have to have MFA. Certain providers today don't even allow these services. I don't know whether Outlook is there yet or not, but I love that my Outlook.com personal account that I use, I don't even have a password today. I've removed the password from my account, and every time I log in, it pushes a notification on my phone. Until I approve that, nobody can get in, right? So now there is this peace of mind where I don't even need my password. I had to go in and configure it, and I removed the password from my account completely. So this is how you get elevated with your with yourself on what contributions you can make on your part. Get yourself educated and make sure that you go ahead and apply those changes, right? Now, these are some very basic principles in terms of what you should understand when working with zero trust in general. There is a lot of literature available from Microsoft and others that should be looked into at the end of the day, right? So I'm not going to go in too much depth over here specifically. So, but the three main zero trust principles that we talk about today is you need to verify explicitly, which is your identity management. And again, I'm gonna take 1 minute here to make everybody understand that there are two pieces when it comes to identity and management that everybody needs to be very clear on. Whether you're a developer or not, it doesn't matter. When it comes to identity and management, there are two things that are very important. One is authentication and one is authorization. These are two different things that need to be well understood in their own silos specifically. Authentication is a part where you identify yourself to a third party and tell them that, hey, I am Jasjit Chopra. This is me who is coming into your system. Can you verify it's me? So I can then, on those identification grounds, get into the system, and then the authorization piece comes in picture. That okay, Jasjit Chopra is authorized to do XYZ tasks in this particular application, right? So authorization is what level of access you have for that person. Authentication is how that person presents himself, whether it's with a username and password and a MFA token, or with a hardware security token as well with it, or a TOTP RSA token, for example. In the old days, bank systems used to use that, and any highly secure government organizations today use those level of encryption and security with identity management as well. So just understand that authentication and authorizations are two different things. They're very important, and it depends on what application you're getting into, or your SaaS service that you're getting into from a cloud perspective, that you get your authentication and authorization, and that allows you to then say, okay, Jasjit is authorized to do admin level of work in Exchange Online or SharePoint Online service. So I'll allow him access to the SharePoint admin portal or an Exchange Online admin portal. Or if he's a global administrator in the Microsoft 365 ecosystem, he pretty much has access to make changes to every configuration that is out there, right? Mm, and then this is where a lot of the companies go wrong, where they don't understand that privileged access management is extremely important to plan, even if you are a team of 20 people, right? If I'm working day in and day out using my regular work account, that regular work account should not be a global admin as well. I should have, now again, this is something that you guys, every individual company will decide on what kind of operation and maintenance overhead they want on top of these policies and identify and document the risk. I'm not saying follow this discussion blindly. You have to have a documented risk analysis done and say that, okay, since we are a team of 20 people or a team of 10 people or team of 50, it doesn't matter. We are ready to accept the risk where a day-to-day account being used by my system admin will have admin privileges, and these are the risks we'll take, and these are the steps we've taken to mitigate those risks. If you don't have that level of clarity and written them down specifically, then you will end up having some issues at a later stage or not. And this is for startups and people who are getting as a very in a very fresh state. I would say do some research and analysis on your own. I know you in that scenario it's very difficult to get the right guidance because you don't have experienced people in your team and stuff like that. But today Microsoft gives you guidelines. Microsoft gives you step-by-step instructions to follow through. And if you look at their documentation, it's all there for you to check on it, right? And thank you, Frank, for putting that in the chat window. There are basic, 3 levels that you can actually understand that if you want to give those people just read-only access, admin level access, or just contribute level access where they can do a limited functionality that an admin can do on a day-to-day basis, right? So understand these roles, privileged identity management systems, and apply least privileges. And there is something called just-in-time access, and you can actually say that, okay, my admin needs to log into a virtual machine as an admin, and the remote port that is used to connect to it will only open at a specific window, or he can approve it to be only opened it for a 3-hour window. He does his work and gets out of it and does it. All these tools and processes are available today to you from Microsoft. You just have to understand them and plan for them and implement it. Again, bigger emphasis on planning first without, oh, this feature exists, let me go ahead and enable it. No, don't do that. Spend some time and do it properly. Security configurations are extremely important to have a good amount of documentation while planning before implementing. Again, I cannot emphasize on this enough. If you just go ahead and even if you're a small player in the market, you do this, you end up having issues in future, and the next person in the line will not know what was done in the past and why it was done in the past, right? So big issues. I've dealt with so many companies. Now, um, there is another issue here in terms of how do you even start with this zero trust principle if you're already a 10,000 employee company, 5,000 employee company, and you are in a journey where you're just getting started. Microsoft gives you a maturity model in terms of where you can understand where you stand in your zero trust journey specifically and mature in every different aspect. You don't have to start and implement everything in one go. You can start your journey, take baby steps, and go there in that right direction. And identify any high risk items in the beginning, implement those first, and then look at the rest of the portfolio of what specific areas zero trust principles apply to, and make them strong one by one, or and go from there, right? And change management is more important here. Talking to people in the early stage of the journey is important. Getting all the stakeholders involved is important. Sending out communication plan, doing communication planning and sending proper communication before and ahead of time is important. If you're rolling out MFA, don't just roll it out by a click of a button in your portal. Understand it. Make a small email. It doesn't have to be a fancy email. A 2 paragraph or a 3 paragraph email is good enough to let everyone know this is coming. This is why we are doing this. We want your participation in this. Even if it is a small team, communicate properly, and have that communication plan. Even if you don't have a dedicated resource to do it, write a small email and send it to everyone. It doesn't take 30 minutes or less than that to do it. That yes, we are going to make changes in security and improve our security posture. You'll see a lot of changes coming in future, right? So that is extremely important. Planning, communication, then execution. And while you're doing planning, do your documentation as well, right? Then the third aspect of this is always assume breach. So this is where we, figure out end-to-end encryption, get analytics in place, and drive some threat analytics. Now this is where it gets a little bit extra expensive in terms of the licenses you need to do all of that, and create automated alerts in system, and go from there. Again, I'm not going to dig in detail over there specifically, right? Now, what do we do with identity as such? What does a good implementation looks like for zero trust in my organization today, right? So the first thing that you would want to start your journey over there is make sure you have strong authentication. Whether you want to implement passwordless or not with hardware token, that's up to you. It's in preview today. You can go ahead and look into it in more detail. But the very first thing I would do is use the modern conditional access and conditional access policies that are available to you out of the box, and implement them with multi-factor authentication, right? Even text-based SMSs, short message system. I'm more inclined towards calling them SMS, but a lot of people know them as text messages normally. But bear with me for with my lingo there. So SMS-based authentication as a second factor, as such, is also considered to be insecure today, because over the air, these packets that are getting transmitted over the radio are in plain text, right? So in all practical sense, these things can be hacked with some local perimeter access as well, right? Then you have your automated risk and detection and remediation. This is where you need to put tools in place that can help you with this. So a good example is today I'm sitting in New York and doing my work, and the next signing happens in Paris within the 2 hours, which means that that's an impossible travel kind of an alert. I cannot travel from New York to Paris in 2 hours unless there is a marvelous technology enhancement that we get in aviation industry that can help you there, or teletransportation comes from Star Trek, right? But you need to have that kind of automated risk detection that can say, hey, you know what? You were just logged in New York. Now you're coming from Paris. Let me ask you for multi-factor again, instead of using that, if that authentication session cookie was stolen, maybe, for example, do that. Or you can put policies in place that will just block the access for that particular login at that point in time. Or you can even go to an extent where you can say that, okay, this person has become too risky for me now because these multiple logins have happened. There is a risk score that can help you with this. I will ask him to reset the password, right? And that reset can only happen with additional two-factor authentication, like your email and your application like Microsoft Authenticator or SMS. So you can have a third factor added to the reset password scenario to make it more secure, right? So that automated risk detection and remediation is something you guys can take your, from an identity perspective, you want to put your zero trust. If you want to get to the maturity level, you should put this in place. And of course, adaptive policies, like we discussed, that, you should say that, okay, for low risk people do this, for medium risk people do this, and for high risk people simply block their access and ask them to reset their password, or just block their account, have them call help desk. You can do that also, right? So impossible travel is one such scenario that you can go ahead and very easily implement in today's modern systems. And this is not just applicable to Azure AD specifically if you're using that as your identity and management solution, but you could do this in Okta, you could do this in Auth0, you can do this in other for example, there's a ping identity provider as well. There are others that do that. But if you want to choose between these different platforms and what you want to implement where, again, it would depend on your use case scenarios and what value for money you get for paying for licensing over here. So a detailed analysis is required over there specifically, right? And of course, you start with identity as such, then you go to the next level, which is networking, and then you go to the next level, which is application. This slide got messed up. There were three items over here: identity, network, and applications, and stuff like that. Now, let's talk about some key components in terms of, you know, how do you look into your how do you start your zero trust readiness for your identity management system? And the very first foundational integration is starting with single sign-on, right? Whenever a login happens, first you should have an ecosystem or identity management provider which allows you to audit all of the actions that are happening, whether it was a success, whether it was a failure, which IP address the person is coming from, which location they're coming from, which device they're coming from. All of that details should be logged properly. And ideally, you should be sending those logs to a SIEM tool to do further AI analytics on top of it to identify different threats. But the very first step is to use one identity for all your logins. So what do I mean by that? Right now, let's say you're on Microsoft Azure and Microsoft Office 365. You want to buy or you want to work with something like uh, mm, which one would be a very common third-party application tool that one would use today. Let's think of it. So out of the box, if you use any Microsoft eco system related product like Yammer, SharePoint, Microsoft Exchange Online, and these products, these are already integrated with Azure AD single sign-on, so you don't need to worry about those specifically. But a third-party app could be like, for example, your HRMS system, right? You're using Zoho people for it, right? You should integrate that with a single sign-on. So if you disable that person's login in Azure AD, he cannot log in into Zoho as well, right? So that is one example where you can integrate this. And you should go ahead and start writing policies for your company as well, whether you're in the starting phase or not, it doesn't matter, where any third party application should go through some kind of vetting process, and it should be written down, and there should be an approval process that, okay, does this third party application check the box of whether it can do single sign on with my identity management provider or not? Yes, go ahead, approve this, or do not approve this, and there can be multiple checks to it. Again, I'm not going to go in detail over there, but this is something you can customize and implement it on your own side of things, right? And get that publisher verification as well. Now, after you've done this, your advanced configuration options would include putting conditional access and putting some authorization context in terms of how the sessions, how long the sessions would work for a particular application, or you could do all cloud applications and do a blanket policy and do that. Uh, 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 Put in a process in place that can do your continuous access evaluation as well, and then put API integration scenario into the mix as well, and make sure that those are well protected and documented, and the audit logs are happening there. And then you can say that, yes, I am in a state where I can say we are ready with zero trust implementation for our identity. But you're not done after it's implemented. You need to make sure the continuous evaluation is happening, and someone is paying attention to the telemetry from logs and alerts that are coming in. All those processes needs to be woven together and implemented. And again, this is just to, the next slide is just to reiterate the fact where I've told you that, MFA reduces the effectiveness of identity attacks by more than 99%. So uh, uh, with this, there are a lot of caveats. I'm going to switch to a browser after one more slide and talk about that a lot and go through it. So uh, um, the icon that you're seeing on the slide is basically from Microsoft Authenticator app specifically. These apps are specifically called TOTP apps, basically time-based one-time password, basically TOTP applications, where for a period of 30 seconds or a period of 60 seconds, once they give you a token when you register for it, there's a registration token. Once you get that, that is a very secure token. Once you register that with any authenticator provider or authenticator TOTP app, uh, time-based one-time password, TOTP, basically it's called. It's a tongue twister sometimes. So TOTP, time-based one-time password, is what it is called. And depending on the configuration, it can be for 30 seconds or 60 seconds as well, or it can be more. Again, it's customizable for different platforms and different scenarios. So you can use that to do your authentication. You don't have to use Microsoft Authenticator. You can use other TOTP based subscribers to do it, and that is the protocol that is used to do this today. The benefit that you get with Microsoft Authenticator is that instead of opening your app, unlocking it, and then looking at those 6 digits and putting them in manually, uh, 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 there is a higher level of integration where it can go ahead and send you a push notification and ask for a button to approve, basically, right? So it's just a matter of convenience as well. All right, now this is important to discuss, like in the industry, what's going on right now. What are the top motivators for people to start looking at zero trust and implementing it? And this is a research that was done by Microsoft, and they've this is coming from Microsoft Adoption Report. So if anybody wants to look at more details in terms of more data from that adoption report, you can just search for Microsoft Adoption Report for zero trust. You'll find it online and go through that PDF specifically. I have taken these 5 points from that specific adoption report. So the number one motivator is that today the companies want to improve their security posture overall. The second motivator is that they want to improve user experience and productivity. Now this is where there is a lot of disconnect from administrators who are working for a very long time in the industry or the same company for 10, 15 years, or maybe 5 years plus. They see this as a non-productive change, which is not the case. You have to implement and configure your workflow of these security implementations and login processes and everything in a way where single sign-on works, for example. So MFA prompt only comes once, and it helps you with logging into your other applications, right? So you have to do that legwork from an IT perspective to do that kind of impact analysis on productivity as well if you roll out certain changes, and make sure that the user experience is not degraded, but it's elevated in different scenarios, and they end up not having multiple username and passwords. Resetting passwords is a lot more easier using the out-of-the-box capabilities that Microsoft provides today. And they've recently rolled out something called when you register for a new account, there is a registration process that will allow you to register for MFA and for resetting password in one go. So, which is a great user experience where when you're getting into and setting up your account for the first time, you get that registration done in one go, where your MFA is set up and your password reset requirements are taken care of as well, right? And practically, it's very easy to implement that as well. But again, do not roll it out blindly. communicate with your users, plan for it, roll it out to pilot users, and then do it. And of course, the next two motivators are fairly straightforward in themselves. Like if they want to simplify their security stack as well. Today, I'm very happy and very satisfied with the complete end-to-end ecosystem that Microsoft provides, especially with the latest edition of Azure Sentinel, the SIEM tool that was missing from the portfolio. And I feel very confident in making giving a holistic approach from a security standpoint to our customers that we can simplify our security stack and manage everything with Azure AD and related services and take your security posture to the next level, and that'll help you reduce security costs eventually as well. And security costs don't just come from licensing, guys. They come from operations and maintenance as well. A lot of people don't understand that. And the more disparate systems you have, disparate systems in terms of non-integrated systems you have, the more operations and maintenance cost you involve in terms of making sure you have skilled people in those different ecosystems as well to work for you and be ready. All right, I'll take a small pause here and see if anybody has any questions. You can unmute yourself and do it. I'm going to switch my screen that I'm sharing to another window. Anyone has any questions so far? All right, let me pick the right window to share. All right. I'm gonna make the chat window available readily with me. If anyone wants to ask any questions, please go ahead. I'm monitoring the chat window too. Can anyone at least give me a thumbs up if they can see the Welcome to Azure portal on my screen? Is it visible?
Yes, it's visible.
Perfect. Thank you so much, guys. All right. So um, for Azure Active Directory, basically you go to portal.azure.com and you go here. Microsoft has come up with a new portal called Microsoft Entra. You should look into it as well. I'm not going to go there for now specifically, but this particular tenant that I'm working with has Azure AD Premium P2 license, which is the top tier from that perspective. And the very first starting point, if you want to look into your Azure ecosystem, is your secure score for identity. And ideally, this should be at 100% for everyone, and if not 100%, close to 100%, and go from there. Just go to that dashboard. Okay, let me. There are different ways you can get to that secure score for identity. You can go to from the left-hand panel after getting into Azure Active Directory. You can go to security and go to secure score from there, or you can look at this My Feed dashboard that is provided to you out of the box on this overview page, and go from here as well. From security, if I go to security on the left here, this is where under manage section, I can see my identity secure score and go through that. And again, this is kind of a no-brainer kind of a thing. Now this is like a demo tenant right now, so you won't see any activities happening over here specifically, but you can see the user impact, you can see the implementation cost, you can see the score impact. So this can give you a very good guiding next steps on what steps to take to improve your security posture. I would download these improvement actions and start working with my team and understanding the impact from a user perspective and cost from my implementation side as well, in terms of how difficult it is for me to execute on it, right? And go from there. So couple of caveats that I want to talk about here. We have another 20 minutes left overall. So let's talk about what how do you basically implement Microsoft multi-factor authentication here, MFA, multi-factor authentication, sorry, here. For multi-factor authentication, you can very simply, go here and manage that as well. But there are two things here. One is a legacy strong authentication that is available from Microsoft, which is this screen specifically. And here, if you look at the top, let me do this so it's easily visible. Um, mm, uh, I see your chart, Frank. I'm not too sure exactly where you're going with that option, but let me explain this first, right? So the very first thing is you should have a policy and a process in place. First of all, not to allow app passwords. This should be absolutely no. You can learn more about these app passwords, and legacy authentication should be disabled as such for any tenant specifically. You should have your notification through mobile app available over here, and ideally uncheck text messages or phone calls. I would just uncheck them. Well, you can still leave for phone calls on, because in a lot of scenarios, there are people who don't have smartphones, and I've seen customers who have end users who don't even have text capabilities, so they need to have this enabled. Now, in this particular settings, when you go to users, over here specifically, make sure everything is disabled, because you want to take care of this multi-factor configuration from a conditional access policy and use it from there. This is a bit of a old and legacy way of doing things. I would not enable MFA from here. We would go ahead and enable it for specific cloud applications in a different way, and make sure everybody's included there, right? Um, Now, this is where you can put in your account lockout policies and how you, if there are any blocked users, you can see here, you can see whether your users can submit fraud alerts or not, and understand, if something is wrong. You can see all the special notifications can go to your email inbox if there is a security team member in your team who needs to monitor these emails specifically. You can go there and do that. Now, I'm not going to go in detail for all of these settings, but it's very easy to enable it once you have all of this in place. You can go here, go to security, and go to conditional access, and this is where you would create your policy. And out of the box, Microsoft provides you a lot of templates that are available, and I would suggest you look into these templates as well. So in identity, for example, I can go here and pick these templates and apply them. These are very good starting points as well at this stage. So you can go to the policy summary and look at Microsoft documentation and go from that perspective. And when you're planning, uh, leave them on in report only mode to understand the impact, and then turn it on. Or you can turn it on for pilot users, and then encapsulate a bigger audience department wise, and then implement it for all users at the end of the day, right? And go from there. Now, what happens uh, uh, in a real world scenario, if you implement this, is this. Let's say I'm going ahead and implementing it for require multi-factor authentication for admins. I'm going to go and just say, go ahead and create these policies, right? So it'll go ahead and create that policy. And right there, the policy is there for me with the report only function. And once this is turned on, uh, there is an exclusion for my user, for the user I'm logged in with right now, with Megan Bowen at this stage. Ideally, you should remove these as well and try not to have any exceptions. Right now, Microsoft did this as best practice so that the admins don't lock themselves out until their MFA is enabled as well. I know I haven't enabled MFA for this particular demo tenant for Megan Bowen, so I'll leave that here. But this is where things tend to go wrong. One after the other, there are issues, especially when you're taking this journey in a midway of your like you're a 5-year-old company or a 10-year-old company, and you're implementing these practices. The biggest mistake people do is turn them on, apply it for all applications, apply it for all users, and then go to the exclude section. Oh, this service account is having problems because we enabled MFA. Let's put that as an exception. Oh, this particular user is having issues and he's a CXO level. You know, let's temporarily add him in the exclusion phase, and then we'll come back to it later and figure out, and somebody will guide him how to do an MFA, or it doesn't have to be a C-level person. It can be any other person who's struggling with getting the MFA set up. Maybe there's something wrong with his application on his phone, or something else in his particular profile from the backend that could be an issue where it's not getting resolved. The temporary solution is to come here and exclude those service accounts, exclude some app service principals, exclude certain applications from here when it comes to the application list, where you'll exclude your SQL service, you'll exclude your Intune service, you'll exclude these lists will keep growing at the end of the day, and you don't keep proper documentation, you don't keep proper business justification on why you excluded them and what risk mitigation steps are you taking if you're excluding these particular applications or identities, whether it's a service account or an app service principal, I don't care. The exclusion, I'm not saying that these scenarios will not come, and there are legitimate business scenarios where you need to exclude them. That's not where I'm going with this, but that should be your last resort. I've seen people, many organizations taking it so lightly, and those accounts become vulnerable, and those bad actors start from there. They'll see this configuration, they'll get access to this, and they'll figure out that, okay, I have a list of certain accounts where I can get into the organization and hack their system because they don't have these strong authentication available, right? Today, Microsoft allows you to do end-to-end integration in a very secure way in so many different scenarios. Explore those options specifically before excluding anything in these policies. This is the number one and the biggest mistakes people do when they try to improve their security posture and end up having, oh, we are compliant, we have everything enabled, MFA is rolled out 100%, but there are exceptions in the user lists over here where, oh, this particular person is excluded. Oh yeah, we temporarily excluded it. And how long ago was this? 9 months ago. Guess what? That account is vulnerable now, right? So I've seen this happening day in and day out with so many different companies, and that's where, even if you say you're 100% compliant and your MFA is there and your identity score is at 100%, the exclusion policy is telling a different story, and you need to make sure you have 100% coverage in a real world, in a real sense scenario where you actually include every single identity as well. There are user identities, there are application-based identities, and there are identities for automation accounts that you use here and there, and there are service principal identities. Document them down and understand the use case scenarios and implement these things extremely carefully. Does that make sense? Any questions on this so far, guys? Anyone? All right. Let's look at some of the templates that are available. So the one that we implemented was for admins. Then you have securing security info registration. So this is where you can actually go ahead and make sure that your security information is registered for MFA for all the users. Then this is extremely important. Another one, which is block legacy authentication, where legacy authentication does not require MFA. This is where things go wrong as well, where I can use legacy applications and just log in with username and password to exchange online, ActiveSec clients and stuff like that. You have to have modern authentication clients and use OAuth from that perspective. So this should be implemented as well. Multi-factor authentication for all users and guest users, again, extremely important for guest users also, because if you're sharing some data and resources with another user outside of your organization and you've asked them to register and access resources within your tenant, for example, SharePoint Online, you can share your data from OneDrive and SharePoint sites. They should register with an MFA as well, right? And of course, for Azure management as well, like when I'm logging into portal.azure.com, that should have a separate policy, and it should have elevated access where all admin level tasks require multi-level authentication. Now, this is these two are only available with Azure Ready P2 license. You can already see that. So this is where you can say that, I want you to present another factor while you're logging in because you've been identified as a risky user. Maybe you're using a laptop for the first time. Maybe you're using some third-party VPN and your traffic is getting routed through some different, geographical location that you normally don't log in from and go from there. So yeah, that's pretty much it in terms of how you would get started and practically implement these things from scratch. But do not just come here and start implementing things without planning first, creating a documentation, and making sure you test these things, put them on report only first, or execute them on a pilot batch, and then and your pilot batch is going to be only your pilot test or proof of concept that you do with this is only going to be as good as your diverse users in that pilot group. So you cannot actually do a pilot test with 5 users in IT department. That's not a good pilot test. I would pick multiple users from multiple departments and a mix of external users, guest users accounts, and do a test and see what problems are coming, mitigate, reiterate, and improve our rollout process, and figure out what we can do to make sure that the other users, when we roll out to them, they don't have this kind of bad experience, or any issues that come during your pilot test. They should be documented, and communication plan should roll out, or a remediation plan should be there for those scenarios. Okay. Anybody has any other questions that they would want me to cover specifically? Otherwise, I can go ahead and stop sharing.
Oh, good question. Well,
Yeah, Frank,
no question,
go
a comment. When I mentioned about the security level from 0 to 5, I'm talking about the management groups in there. So in the okay, I know some folks in here are not familiar, but
right.
we're on, since this is security stuff and identity,
Right.
what I meant by security level is from 0 to 5, I believe. 0 is like, I'm referring to the management level, and under the management level, you will have a list of users, and I forgot the hierarchy off the top of my head.
Right.
But I know somewhere
these are,
in there.
I think these are, you're referring for those level 1, level 2, level 3 that are defined by a standard.
Thank you.
Right. That's what you're referring to. Yes. I think it's different industries have labeled them in a little bit of a different way. I think I'm forgetting that code or what it is. Right.
Yeah, I forgot too. That's what I'm asking.
Right, exactly. So yeah, you can actually document it there as well. You can start documenting. Thank you, Frank, for that. So you can start your security level from a management group and rate them from 0 to 5 and create those policies and procedures accordingly, and add and remove people from those security groups so they automatically get privileged access as well from that perspective. Yeah, that
That's
helps.
like least privilege right there from
correct. Exactly.
level 1.
Exactly.
I forgot level 1 to level 5.
Correct.
Somewhere in the management group. That's what I meant earlier. Sorry.
Understood. No, that's perfectly.
That's part of the implementation too.
Yes.
Like you mentioned about groups and
correct.
You got groups, policies, and permissions, and so on.
Correct.
Yep. Thank you.
All right. 5 minutes left. Do we have any other questions? I hope this was helpful, guys. And make sure whatever role you guys are working in, start looking at best practices within your role, how to improve security posture in day-to-day operations that you do, and help reciprocate that message in your organization and push it forward, and rub this off, this kind of thought process that everybody should be responsible for security in one way or the other, and we'll have, if everybody starts thinking about these within their roles, we'll have a much secure world out there, and we can be a lot more well prepared, and not fall victim to these cyber crimes that are happening out there. All right. We have a survey in the chat window. Don't forget to fill that survey in. It's extremely important, so we know how to improve further. And over to you, Rashmita. You can do the closing.
Thank you, Jasjit, so much for this amazing session. And thank you all for joining us today. Please share your feedback about today's session. Also, please visit our Microsoft Reactor Bengaluru meetup page for more upcoming session. I have already shared the link in the chat section. Thank you all once again and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye.